good morning, folks. We're going to do some artwork today. Give me a moment to check in on my signal to make sure that we are live, and I've got some real... Give me a moment to check in on my signal. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. So I'm going to drop that down. Hopefully it doesn't get in the way. Give me a hot second here. I just want to hit the links on my social medias to let folks know that I'm up and running so we can pull in new folks. And then we'll get to work. So if you're catching this in the future, you can skip ahead a minute after the bump, and we'll be diving into some Bob Ross artwork today. So my name is Phil Kearney. What's up? I create role-playing games. I illustrate them and I publish them online. And I'm making an adventure for the Eberron campaign setting using Dungeons & Dragons 5e 2024 rules. We're really close to done. We got like maybe 8 illustrations left and we're done with the series. So if you think this stuff is cool, it'd be wonderful if you guys wanted to stick around. I obviously need to earn you, but like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Hey, new subscribers, 6 o'clock, guys. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notification when we're live in the future. Here's a bunch of D&D books that I've created that are published on the DMsGuild. They all have free previews. So if you like the artwork that I produce, you can click on the free previews and just skim through the book to see the kind of artwork that I make. If you're a role-playing enthusiast, definitely skim through the books to see if it's stuff that you think is interesting. And if you want to buy some of it, God bless you. I appreciate the support. Otherwise, just stick around. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're at 612 at the moment. This is a book cover we created back around episode 40 of Making This Adventure. We're currently here, way up at episode 578. I have no idea. Maybe we'll get to 666 episodes. I hope not, because that's months from now. But with God's grace, we'll get this done in December. So I was talking about this yesterday. Just to remind folks, this is, hold on, let me get rid of the reference image here. This is a 16 by 9 format. Because it's a digital product, I don't need to conform to print pages like 8.5 by 11s. The 16 by 12 format is actually a lot more useful on a device. You can see, if you're on full screen, you'll see one page is filling the space, and each column is also a 16 by 9 ratio vertically. So you can, when this is an actual PDF, you can churn through it page by page, looking at one page at a time, or you can look at it one column at a time and go through the entire adventure that way. So, super fun. Love the format. I need to grab my toolbox here real quick, so let's go down to Windows and open up our tools. Excuse me. And let's see. I'm going to fix my back window here real quick. Get that down out of the way. Yeah, okay, so we're going to do some Bob Ross stuff today. So the text is on a separate layer. I'm going to push Sulgu aside and hide the divining pool and just look at this as a forest environment. And let's add our references back in here real quick. And we're just going, we have a general idea of what this looks like. Let's go ahead and we're going to have everything that's behind the text is going to be masked. But for the fun of adventure and the sake of illustration, we're going to just go ahead and expand this here into a full forest. I'm just going to scratch some of this out here real quick, just get some trees in. Just some quick lines, some shrubbery that we're going to have kick in through here. Some shrubbery back here. We're just going to use Bob Ross techniques to build this little forest cove or glade. Let's call it a glade, shan't we? We're going to make this little forest glade here. We'll have like a little hitch down in here. And since Sulgu and the divining pool are going to be blocking a lot of this environmental stuff that we're doing, I'm pretty free to just go ahead and play around and do what I want. So we're going to make a little lump over here and have these trees come down like this, and just make a neat little a neat little forest scene here, something that's a little cute and pops a little bit. Now like that here, and like that. Maybe maybe a little stump over here. That's largely going to be concealed by the text that we're going to end up layering in. But we'll know it's there, and it's a fun little piece, so it won't be hurting anybody. It'll take a little bit of time to build it, but I'm already 578 episodes in. Why cut corners now, right? So let's just keep stabbing at it. So this is our rough line work that we're going to have for the forest, which we're eventually going to just throw away completely. But I also want to make sure that I get my color layer in here. And we're going to start at the back and work our way forward in true Bob Ross style. And I don't see any color, as we were talking about last session, so I use these color samples here of this illustration and this illustration to go back here and let's pick up some sunlight in the background. It's mildly off-white, so it's going to have a very minimal effect. But it is a nice little patch of light that we can kick through here. So I'm just going to blend this in a little bit here. Switch to a cloud brush. Just smudge this all in. It's a very light effect, so don't have to worry about it too much. Just blend it in a little bit just to lighten up the background, just to give it a little bit more shine. Kick through, contrast to the rest of the page. I actually kind of like that. I'm gonna grab a really light green here as a background scatter condition. So I'm going to grab one of the brushes. These brush sets are on my Patreon, which is linked down below. You can get these tools for free. The kit of all these different brushes that I made to help make this forest type illustration possible. So this is a custom brush. I use a Wacom tablet with a rotating pen, so I can spin the shape of the brush around like this, right? Be able to create these little radial symmetry effects. And nature likes to duplicate itself. So I'm taking this little static pattern here like that, and I'm going to drop it into the foliage background here, just to start creating a little background layer of noise for the forest with some sort of light to poke through. Just going to kind of bounce this stuff in here. I think what I'm going to do is, once we layer in this light, distant foliage, I'm going to use a Gaussian blur tool to fuzz it out of focus, so it becomes less of a texture and it becomes more just noise, like scratch on the page. I want to keep rotating it around so that it doesn't have any particular pattern. There. Now I'm going to, actually, let's kick on over here a little bit more. Beep, 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 beep. Like that. Beep, 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 beep. Good. And now I'm going to take, oops. Well, dagnabbit, Kearney, you were supposed to have this on a separate layer. Fuck it. Let's just leave it. Hold on. I'll add it back in. I accidentally put this brush on the same layer as the backlight background, but that's actually not going to hurt us today. So I normally like to break these things up into separate layers, but that didn't really matter. So we're going to take Gaussian blur, and we're going to push it out like that. That should work. I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to expand the brush. We're going to swap the brush to use the same brush we added ink. We're now going to use it to erase. I'm going to drop down the opacity of the eraser down to 30% so that I have to hit it multiple times to get rid of the smudge blocks. I'm going to push this down, push that up, and drop that just a smidge for background color again. See, we're getting this light texture that looks like foliage that's poking through everything. It's actually a really, really easy way for us to be able to create these texture effects. And by having a low opacity, every time I hit the erase button, it only removes 20% of the pixel information that's there. So I have to tap it multiple times, and if I'm spinning my brush while I do it, it removes any kind of recognizable pattern in the brushwork. So now it just becomes white noise, like little gray, like you can see the idea of tree foliage back there in the distance, right? That's the point, is that it's creating this hint of information that once your eye recognizes it, it just basically just hand waves the rest of it. It's like, yeah, you're in a forest. That makes sense. Because it recognizes the pattern of foliage, and it doesn't have to explain it any further. That's a lot of how Bob's techniques work, is it tricks the eye into just convincing itself that this is okay, and that it's representing the foliage, the brushwork, the whatever it is. It's represented so your eye can just fall asleep. Because the less information your eye has to process, the happier your visual cortex is, because you're not burning sugar calories to try to figure out what the hell you're looking at. I'm going to add that white back in as a super backdrop here. Underneath this layer. So I wanted to lighten that back up again. So I'm just taking this stuff and just blending it in. Like that. Good morning, folks. Welcome to the mix. And then let's add in this distant forest layer again. I'll go back to the erase button. We're still at 30% opacity, so that's good. I can just tap it just a little bit more. And I feel like I want to add in another layer on top of this just to have that foliage lighting breakup effect. So when you zoom in, you can see it, but it's patchy, right? You've got like little bare patches here and patches here. It looks right. It's a good background radiation sort of effect for the light to filter through all these leaves. But I want to do it again on a separate layer and then change up the color a bit. And since I'm colorblind, I always use my photo references for my colors. So we'll go back into here and we're going to grab, say, something like that. Like that. Tap again. Grab our foliage fade brush. Here, change the size of the brush a little bit to make it blend a little bit more. And then we're just going to tap through, again, this random pattern. These brushes that I made were based off of, I would pause Bob Ross videos on YouTube, and then I would look at like the first stroke, the first tap on a bush. I'd pause it between that tap to look at how the pattern of leaves or whatever line, like the brushwork would splay on the page. And I looked at a bunch of those, just look at any kind of like idea of patterning that might exist in the brushes. And the brilliance about that that wet on wet tapping technique is it's just stippling. It's just stippling with 1,000 hair brush. And it doesn't replicate. It's a scattered pattern, and he can change the rough idea of the contours and angles of that pattern by the way that he bends the brush on, like while he's bending his brush when he's tapping, he can get different angle effects out of those horsehairs that are tapping against the canvas loaded up with paint. And we don't have that level of flexibility in Photoshop. So I took some of these replicating pattern ideas, these little scattered lines, like you can see, like there's our brush, right? And it's convenient to be able to turn and hook these things together to make these neat little pattern effects. So then we're putting in enough color information to, at a distance, change the color of the background. But as we zoom in again, we can see that it's just a pockmarked stippling of these pre-shaped brushes. So then when I come back in and I use the eraser tool with the same brush, and it's at 20% opacity, when I tap at it, it only takes a little bit of the information away, but I'm using the same pattern brush to kind of, what would be like to, what's the right word for that? To disrupt the signal in radar and light waves and stuff. If you have one light wave that's waving like this, and then you have another pattern that's waving like this, and when they hit each other, they nullify. At each point where those points cross over, they neutralize each other and become basically invisible to that spectrum. And so by using the same type of brush, erasing as I did added on, it's like disrupting, it's like making that disappear, but it's using the same pattern, so it becomes more and more convincing to your eye that there is a pattern, but it doesn't look like a brush. You get rid of the artifact look to it. Hey, what's going on, Fox? Yeah, I decided to go ahead and make a Bob Ross forest out of this. So obviously most of the text in the illustration is going to block a lot of the side bits. But we're here for the journey, right? I may as well not rush at this point. It's already been so long that I've been building this thing. Building it for quality is just the best solution I can come up with. So let's just build and be builders. So I'm going to blur that out a little bit and then tap it in again. And I'm rotating my brush as I tap with only 20% opacity. So it's just chewing off just a smidge of color information each time I do it. So when we zoom in, we get this general malaise sort of background. I'm going to drop the opacity of the entire layer just a little bit to back off the patchiness of it. But when we look at this illustration here, it's all blurred out in the background. When we look over here, you can see like these little pixels of information, which are branches, patches of leaves that are so far back in the background that it's just pixelated light. It's not any discernible pattern. But the context, as you move further forward in the illustration, is identifying these leaves. So your eye is automatically just assuming that this background is the same color-ish, so it's probably the same texture, same shapes. It's like this foreground, this little sprout of a tree is helping feed information about these branches back here. So that's the same sort of effect that we're looking to duplicate here. What's up? You need to warn me for Bob Ross days. I was not prepared for the the proper socks. Well, we'll probably be working on this for the rest of the week. So it generally takes me to do an illustration like this, Bob Ross. It typically takes anywhere from 6 to 12 hours to be able to complete a Bob Ross piece, just depending on how intense it is. That's there. I'm going to actually drop the opacity on this layer here. I'm going to use one more layer. I'm really stacking this stuff up, ain't I, boys? But I'm going to use one more layer to help get rid of any of the larger pockmarks that we see. I'm going to grab a darker color as well. It's like we can see like a little circle pat. Like when we really pan out, you can see patchiness here. And so I mainly want to drop patches in over those little blank spots to help fill in the gaps. So we're just going like this. And I used a larger sized pixel again, a larger brush, because it's darker. So the furthest back was the smallest brush size. And as we're moving forward, we're increasing the size of the brush, and we're using a lower value or a darker color to help further reinforce that layering. As you get closer, the color will be less washed out. It'll be more contrast, and so contrast in this case is more dark against the light backdrop of the filtered sunlight. So that feels about right. We'll just do that. And then we go back in and we do a Gaussian blur, Gaussian blur with a smaller size distort. Click OK. Take the opacity and drop it down a bit. And then we're again hitting it with the 20% eraser here. And this is because it's a forest scene at roughly eye level, we don't have a lot of cloud information. Like there's not a lot of sky filtering through here, just some sunlight. So we don't get to create the cloud backdrop that we would typically use in any Bob Ross landscape environment. Got to have happy clouds, right? Well, if you're in a forest, you're not going to see them. So instead of having the clouds in the sky to create the backdrop or texture of the sky, or lack of texture as the backdrop for all the environmental stuff that we're going to do here at the ground level, we're instead doing this filtering effect with the leaves to create that interest, that backdrop. That this is the infinite of being filtered through leaves, if that makes sense. Just tap it down just a smidge. And then one last go, another layer, same color brush, just tapping into these spaces that have bare spots. There, like that. Tap around, and again we rotate the brush so we break up the pattern so there's no obvious like brush effect that's going on. It just washes away into texture. And then we zoom in. There, we've got a pretty good background, just leaves filtering, sunlight filtering through leaves is the word I'm trying to use here. And that works pretty good. And then once we actually add in all the trees in the forest and then have all the branches and stuff, it'll disrupt that signal with layering more and more information on top of all of it as we go. So I'm pretty happy so far. These two trees are the main spotlight, but I think we have opportunities for more happy trees to kind of let themselves be known in here as well. But this is the line art, which is largely unnecessary. So I'm going to drop the opacity down on that just to keep an eye on where they're at. And then we can take all of this and we can just call this, let's call it sky, which is not what it actually is, but that's the purpose that it's serving in this piece. This will be the next area. We're going to call this trees. So I'm going to start off with that. Let's grab a base color that we can use for our trees. This blurred out background is actually really useful for finding a uniform color. See how all these washed out, like it gets rid of all the gritty texture of the actual wood that creates highlights and dark spots. Yep. Fox, this might be interesting to you. I'm going on Thursday night, and Mondays and Thursdays, probably for a while. I'm going to start building out the maps and assets for the Spelljammer Storm King's Thunder campaign that we're going to be using the Kaiju and Construct mechanics. So that is, I know that you have a hand on the stick about like different games that we're running when you're available. That is what we're going to be working on in the future. So I'm going to use this base color here. Let's expand it a bit. I'm going to use this base. Nope, that's 20% fade. Here. That's the base color that we're going to use for trees for now. And as you can see here in this forest, you can see up here in the contrast, like there's a greenish haze in the background, and then it turns into a darker red, a more red focused on the trunks here, where they aren't blurred out. Back here, these trees are blurred out and they become more greenish in a lighter color. So I think that's a good base color for us to start with, just to start adding in some random trees. So we're just gonna add in some color here. Where we actually already have trees, that's what we're going to honor and see what comes about. So the only way for the one advantage that we have over Bob Ross in this digital environment is we don't have the intuitive and infinitely variable brushes that Bob can use in real space with his 1,000 hair brushes, but we can undo. So it's each tool has a trade-off and has a different function and usefulness. And our usefulness is being able to erase. So I can add in a bunch of color information and I can get rid of some of it when I don't need it. So for now, I'm just going to brush in all these trees at this low opacity here, or this diffused color. I'm going to say it's diffused. We can add all these in and then thread them all together. And then add more color information, like darker color as they become closer to the camera. So this will just be the base distant tree look that we incorporate. And then we can filter in between these more trees with a lighter color until they fade out into the background. But so I guess we're just kind of establishing a line of interest, quote unquote. Hey, what's up? Hand-drawn maps on camera? Yeah, I'm going to do all the asteroid communities and put them into, like, we'll set a scale of like miles or tens of thousands of miles or whatever. And we'll just create the environment map, which will be like the XCOM 2 world map that we're going to be moving between different communities. And then we'll zoom in and we'll build out each of the community, and we'll establish like what sort of materials are harvested at each of those materials. It's like some of them will have like a lot of farmland on them. Some of them will have forests. Some of them will have mines. We'll probably put a random table together of different materials that each could have. And then we'll establish the size of each of them, which will establish the rank of the community and the amount of resource points, that bastion points that will be in each of those communities, the size of their militia. That'll establish a baseline of like how much resistance can they put up against each individual kaiju that comes in and attacks them. That will help the team prioritize, like, that's a well-defended community. It can hold out for a little while if this other area is under attack and in more need of help. So hopefully we'll be able to create decision-making opportunities that way by establishing knowledge of what, like, towns or villages, or I don't think we're going to have any cities here. I think a city would be too well developed, but villages and towns, second and third rank tier communities will be enough of interest and have enough resources for the team to be able to start like creating trade routes between them and running the shop, as it were, on top of defending it from attack. So hopefully that'll end up being fun. So we're going to organize it as a bastion campaign. So each bastion turn, there's a new potential for monsters to attack. That becomes a priority mission for the player characters to go fight. And otherwise, it'll be trade and diplomacy and be able to get out of the mech and get down on the feet on the 5-foot scale to actually interact with people. Maybe like pirates or criminal rings, like crime rings might crop up in the place. I don't know. We'll see what happens. That's the nature. That's the fun nature of a bastion campaign, is that all of the events in the world are progressively generated to create new challenges that the team can decide how they want to exploit the opportunities that arise as a result of those conflicts. And I plan on running it from like maybe level 5 to like maybe 13, something like that. It'll probably take 8 months for us to run through it if we have people show up every weekend in our 3-hour blocks that we run on Saturday mornings. That's the idea. That's the idea. I'm going to get a map drawing stream right on. Hey, Defected, it's good to see you, my guy. I am Space Fast. Let's go. Right on, dude. I haven't done any like free other than Vocast base. I haven't really developed any assets for Spelljammer since releasing the Spelljammer book, other than the Eberron asteroid belt mining campaign that I'm running. I think I'll be able to use that as guidance But these are established communities. It's not an asteroid mining belt campaign. It's resource management and the like settlements where people are starting to populate space and establishing these different locations. But whatever. You know what? I don't think I want to add in branches here yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. Right now, we're just focusing on trunks. I'm letting the line art confuse me, but nope, don't need to be confused like that. The hopes is to actually start launching the campaign in February. So I'm gonna slow cook this one and do a lot of the asset creation and build the random event tables. And there's no spoilers here because each week is a new bastion turn that we roll on the table to see what new stuff arises, and if the new events are referencing event makes sense to connect to past events, then we connect them to past events as like fallout or follow up from different efforts that you've already taken. If the random event is introducing something new, then me as a DM, my prep work each week is to establish what does this mean, and I might actually do that on maybe Monday night design or something like that. Actually roll through what's going to be happening in the next bastion turn as a sort of I guess almost a spoiler or read ahead for any players that were to participate to see what's coming up, because it's not knowing what's coming. Because you're going to find out when I roll the dice. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen anyway. So if I just make it available as common knowledge during the prep work on stream, then you're basically just getting the information 5 days ahead of time. And it's still going to be the same thing that I tell you later, but now you're going to have a little bit of backstory and maybe a little bit of reference, because I could roll up space pirates are attacking, and there's not a lot of spoilers involved with that. When they show up, they fucking show up, and that's the turn that you're dealing with. But if we develop and build out information about who they are, that might provide just some interesting context for the players to decide how, if they watch, to decide how they want to handle the pirates once they're there. I don't know. If they have motives and stuff, maybe the sense of discovery will be taken away in that sense. But it's potential that if I go about and layer in all of those details about motives and interests and background about who they are and stuff like that as I build it, that doesn't mean that you've solved anything. It just gives you maybe a little bit of insight. Maybe everything that I do this in this sense, there's some these are the red flags. Is this pirate organization that is known to attack asteroid cluster communities like the one that the team will be responsible for? So maybe their reputation will precede them, and me talking about them during game design night on stream will be that precedent, or will be that preceding. I don't know. It's an idea. We'll see how it works out. But yeah, starting Thursday night, we're going to start doing asteroid mapping and building out the community and establishing the size of the population and what sort of materials they are harvesting to make them valuable as part of the collective. And hey, look! We're seeing trees for the forest, right? I don't think it needs to be that high up. I've overextended the tree line. I'm going to end up disable. I'm going to end up clipping it around like this, so it's going to be a wide shot. All this extra stuff up here is probably unnecessary, but I'm including it for now, just to include it. I could actually raise the sky up a smidge to give us a little bit more aerial space. Okay, cool. So that's looking pretty good. We're gonna have this is our general tree line here. I want to add in another line with trees. Oh, these should actually be there. I'm going to grab a lighter color than this and add in another tree line further back. Maybe something like a lot more grayed out, but yeah, that's got a little twinge of color there. I like that. So let's see how that fills in. Not quite what I want. There, that's a look at the RGB up here in the corner. The G is just slightly ahead of the R, and the B is trailing a little bit further. That is a very desaturated gray tone with just a hint of green. So I think that's going to end up being a decent in-between color here. Just drop these things in. Just like that. Yeah, this book is coming to an end. We've got like maybe after this like 7 illustrations left that we need to do for the book, and then I need to do the then I need to integrate all the pages actually into like all the art into the pages. I also need to hyperlink everything. Area 2 of this map is here, and if you click on it, I want you to be able to bounce over to the page where that map is specific. That room is being detailed specifically. So I'm off camera. I'm going to be probably starting next week. Start hyperlinking everything, and starting to prep the book for, to be ready to. I like to do the hyperlinking before I add in the artwork because the file size of the document is going to get bulky. And being able to flit around the document quickly to be able to add in hyperlinks is going to become less and less convenient as the bulk of the document continues to rise. So by the time I start actually adding art to the document to prepare it for merging into a PDF, I'll eventually stop streaming that stuff. Once the illustrations for this book is done, I'll probably drop in to say, hey, here's some of that, here's some of the process that I'm following to make this thing happen. Here's how I lay in pictures. Maybe I'll do an episode of that. But for the most part, I will not stream that process because streaming is RAM intensive, and integrating the art into the document is also RAM intensive, and there's potential for crash. So I need to be mindful of that. So once all these illustrations are done, I will stop streaming the Eberron book until I start doing follow-ups, which means that my mornings, Monday through Friday, are going to open up. And there's probably going to be a few weeks of a few weeks between having the illustrations finished and actually publishing the book, because that's going to be nighttime, like off-stream time that I'm doing that work. But I do artwork on Monday through Friday in the morning. And if I'm not doing the artwork for this book, what am I doing? So that becomes an opportunity for me to do maybe some commissions. I know I have one commission that's lined up to do a crow and a tree that I'll probably start poking at here in the next couple weeks. But yeah, this whole adventure that we're on here, it's coming to an end. So I'm gonna fade that out. Literally this adventure. Yeah, let's fade that out a little bit. What is going on my team? Do you weigh consequences and add more dice depending on how roll is with a set amount of dice? Place a shop. Hold on. Let me explore that question. There, and there. Okay, so what's up? I have quite a few maps and hand drawn for a live group for little encounters. I am missing text. You guys are active today. I could get into a map drawing stream. I have quite a few maps I hand drew for in real life groups for a little encounters. Nice. If you're interested, you could snap some photos of them and you could steal from them. I'm just gonna freehand everything. I'm just gonna let the muse guide me like usual. Thanks though. A place to shop. That's
That's all that matters. Do you weigh consequences and add more dice depending on just roll or for it with a set amount of dice? Yeah, there's the Bastion events has a D20 table. Casually using the word flit like most people know what it means. I love it. Right on, man. You have to remember the context you spoke about. Remember the context you spoke about.
Oh, right on. Yeah, the Bastion campaign system that I had been streaming on Mondays and Thursday nights. There's a Bastion event table that gets rolled on, and the higher the roll, the more beneficial, like the more of a the more of a boon that event is. But it's a seed to adventure. So each Bastion turn, there's an event that can occur that's going to flavor all of the basically like be a flavor or theme of that week for things that are going on. So as you issue orders to your Bastion at the beginning, at the end of your turn, at the end of a Bastion turn, you set up and roll for what the results of that turn is going to be. So me as a DM, I can prep the consequences of those tasks failing or the benefits of the tasks succeeding. So when I roll the event, it will flavor whether you succeeded or failed. Like if there's pirates attacked, if you have good Bastion events with pirates, that could mean pirates are being routed in your area, and there's an opportunity for you to participate join a posse and chase them down. If bad events happen during your Bastion turn and it's pirate themed, then pirates are going to attack. They're going to harass your communities. That's your kaiju for the week, for instance. We're going to build all that out. So we have the generic Bastion events table that we've already developed for the book, but since we're doing a Spelljammer themed campaign specifically, it's a good opportunity for us to build a unique Bastion events table that will better reflect the themes of the campaign that we want. So the Bastion campaign is just presenting a general, like a generic idea of how campaigns operate. And then it's us going in and actually developing out. I'm going to add in a third layer here and just fill in this tree because I want to get rid of this line art. I think the line art has already served its purpose for this illustration. So I can get rid of the line art and move on from there with these trees. Because like all these little lines here, they're starting to distract away from like the actual form of the forest that I want to build. So we're using this very light color initially just to establish a base point, like a shape. And then we're going to shapes to be able to help figure out like layering assets like different tree forms over each other. But once we get these filled in, we also have this layer here already established. So we can do like that. So that means I can, for now, get rid of the line art. Can I? Am I at that point? Yeah, I'm at that point. We can hide the line art for now. We'll eventually not need the line art at all. You can see how this background layer is lining up with this, this midline layer here. I'm going to actually get rid of that. Let's just, yeah, we don't need that. What I do need is line art back. Here, let's do it like this. Yeah, add those in here real quick. Sorry, I'm organizing myself. Get that there. That goes there. That goes like that. More branches here. More branches here and here. And here. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Yeah, we'll have those sit like that for now. Blop, blop. They say. Yeah, this will do. Okay, cool. So now we have these in here. We're seeing this background forest here.
let's see, like for instance, this tree here, I think we'll do better if we push it over a little bit like that. Just grab that block there and just push it around a little bit. And we can fade them a little bit more into the background so they blend in a little more. That feels pretty good. So let's take this back up to 100%, and let's just go ahead and start adding in twigs and branches. But we're going to do that on a separate layer. There. We're going to start layering all these things in, just a bunch of branches that will eventually build out. And I'm fine for now. I'm fine with these crisscrossing over each other, creating these lattices. That's going to help feed into the color information that we have in our hazed background to help reinforce that these are distant trees. And then we're going to drop the opacity on all of this. I don't want to line those up too much like that. And it sounds like my music stopped. Yeah, it sure did. Epidemic gets sticky every now and again. There's that, there's that, there's that. There we go. Yeah, it's just a random table of different events and that flavor what actually happens. And then the players will make decisions about, because they can issue orders. And they can issue orders to their actual bastion facility, which is a flying fortress that navigates between the different communities. And they can issue orders to the communities themselves. Like, produce more of this, trade with that. Like, you have to establish these trade lines through your ship, basically moving materials from one community to another. And so, if one community needs new resources of some sort and another community is capable of producing them, then you can decide to, well, let's go ahead and have them start churning out that material that they need so that demand gets met. So it's a little bit of Civ style gameplay, which is a vibe. But the team will decide how much they want to micromanage that stuff and how much they don't care about it. But that's part of the campaign process is establishing, how much fun is the team having in doing this resource management stuff, and if they enjoy it, lean into it. If they don't, well, lean away from it. So for now we're doing this. And once I get all these established, we'll start adding in foliage. We're going to fade all these branches in so that they're not as pronounced and more recede further into the background by fading them out, by reducing their opacity, making them wash away in the background. But on top of it, we'll have all of these different. Each of these branches can hold foliage. So we'll have a new foliage brush and we'll just start layering it in and then fade it out, and it'll just become more of this background texture that we're looking at. But this background here is just fluffs of foliage without any trunks or anything that's poking through this lattice. Once we establish these things, we'll have context for like what are those bunches of foliage actually perched on. We're building the perches in the mid-ground here for the eye to identify where these things are coming from. It's just a process. There. Like that feels pretty good. It's a little sloppy, but I think it can be. It doesn't concern me too much. feels pretty good. Let's go over here, make sure we don't have any slop going on here. Fix that. Fix that. Like that. That looks pretty good. Put that in, make sure it sticks. There we go. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Okay, cool. So I'm going to take this and these, and I'm going to group those together, and I'm going to drop the opacity of these so they fade into the background a little bit more. You got these trees. See how it's starting to fill in? We're just basically overloading the page with textures and cross texture and different lines, and just basically filling in all the gaps so that the eye is just eventually going to give up on it. So I like that 60%. So we're going to go with that. We're going to drop this away again. We're going to grab since this is pretty good. It's a decent starting point. So let's pull back into the map here a little bit, and let's look at some colors that we might see here. Sharp. Let's look at this. It's a little washed out. That's actually probably going to be pretty good. So let's try using this brush color here, and we're going to bloop the reference, and let's give it a second here to make sure that all these branches are actually snugging up on their trunks. Good. I don't care that these are just like little stubby sticks, because the plan is to put foliage across beyond the where these sticks are at. Just doing a little bit of cleanup here, a little nitpicking. Just a little bit of nitpicking. There we go. Don't want knobs at the end of them. There, thin that down. Okay, that's a good place. So let's start sprinkling in new foliage. So we're going to take a brush. Let's find a new brush. That will be fun. I think my gut's telling me to go with this conifer tips brush. So this is what this brush looks like. I use it, it's a very versatile tool. I use it for different things. And for now, I'm going to use it so that it will, I'm going to flatten it a bit. Like that. And I'm going to use it to dust across these different foliage points that we made. We need to figure out what angles I want to use for it to look right, though. No, that's not how I want that to look. Let's, you know what? Actually, my gut is telling me to switch, and let's go to this conifer branch here, which we use like this to create these little texture effects. I think that is probably going to serve us better. If I drop it down to a really small size like this, I can then tap it across these branches parallel to the ground, as branches would, you know, as leaves would do. We should be able to dot this stuff in here like that, and just basically concealing the end of the branches and letting them all just blend. Look at that. Look at how all that's just going to blend its shit all together. all I have to do is just basically focus them at the end of the sticks that we made that are branches, and we don't have to worry about hyperextending the branches or doing any crazy work like that, because the foliage density will help remove the end of that branch being gone just by piling up foliage like that. See, I'm using foliage a lot in my sentences right now. It's bothering me a little bit. But there we go. We're just going to stipple this stuff in. See how it's creating these layers, especially here, now that we're getting down. Come on, Kearney. Zoom tool. Thank you. Now that we're getting down, like in this area here where we have this background, like this distant faded background texture, and we're integrating this stuff in front of it, it's starting to suggest that this foliage that I'm creating now is being reflected in this pattern back here. And the eye is going to trick you into thinking that's okay. Because this is just another layer of foliage. And again, we're just stacking these things up so much that your eye is eventually just going to give up. It's going to be like, yeah, kid, that's a forest. Stop making me think about it. Like, your eye doesn't want to have to think about what it looks like. It really doesn't. If you can explain to the eye real quickly what this thing is that it's looking at, it will believe you and will just fill in with your own imagination what that's actually supposed to be. That's what a lot of really good loose art can do, is it alludes to shapes that your eye wants to believe in. And so tricking the eye into saying it's okay, don't worry about it, that's a fun accomplishment. So I'm using the same erase tool as I'm using with the brush, so that the negative space is the same shape as the foliage that we're doing, so it creates another form of recurring pattern that also actively disrupts pattern recognition. Like, it won't look like a brush if we add in enough pigment and then erase enough of it with the same lines. It'll just become texture, and the eye will just accept it as texture. So I can break up these little patches here. This little crisscross here, I want to add in denser foliage over that to break up that X effect. Where these X's are, that's where I want to focus a lot of the shrubbery, to break up the shapes, to hide the illusion of how sloppy these little crisscross X marks are that we put in these trees. But when you look back at it, this is looking pretty good. And when we take the whole thing and we drop the opacity on it a bit, it just creates more color information here. Just adds to the effect. I'll probably drop the opacity of the foliage itself a little bit more than the trees that they're sitting on. But this is part of the process. So we just dot on this in, and obviously we're not going to get this picture done today. It's going to take a little bit longer than that. Well, I mean, we have all the character art and shit to do in the foreground. But I suspect we'll be on this forest probably for the rest of the week. So this is Wednesday, so Thursday and Friday. If I can get this done by Friday, we'll be moving at a really decent clip. And I don't expect any of this upper end here to actually make it through in the final illustration. I'm just putting it there so that that it organically hyperextend, like it organically extends off the space of the canvas that I want to have. This is going to be the active area of the piece, like right in here, all of this. So this is all I really care about. So this added information that we're doing above this line, that's just to push the pattern up so that I can afford to nudge the picture around a little bit, or maybe resize it a little bit without hitting immediate border lines that break the illusion. But yeah, almost everything that Bob Ross does is just stippling. It's 7:29. I've got another 20 minutes left, so we can fill in this. We can certainly fill in all of this foliage here, and then we'll be ready to start working on the key trees. Kind of like in animation, you have key cells, right? You got keyframes, and you got tweens. These trees are more like tweens, that they're helping frame and transition the eye from one significant tree to the next. And we only have 2 significant trees in this scene that are going to be here and here. Those are our primary trees. So I might actually get rid of this and this tree. We'll figure it out. We're still, because I can add in fog elements to diffuse color and to create little trails and stuff inside of here, and then we'll start adding in the foliage. But see, I mean, this is going to end up looking really fucking good. If we just drop these down a bit like that to push them back, then we can see that these trees pull forward, and then we'll start adding in darker and darker material to help pull them forward with more contrast. But no need to get ahead of ourselves. That is on the way. Come through here and hit these particularly dense spots with some eraser, and then fill them back in a little bit. So your eye just kind of loses, like you can see the branches at the trunk, but then it just kind of fades into the foliage. That's exactly what we want. We want you to lose track of where these branches going, because it's not important. But the information is there to help lead the eye to believe, okay, yeah, these are trees. This is just foliage and trees. No, nothing interesting to see here, people. I'm pretty happy with that side, so let's start working through the middle here. I'm going to actually increase the brush here for the middle. I'm just basically just bouncing along. I'm keeping this relatively parallel to the ground, because that's how branches do. That's what leaves do on branches, you know? Just filling that all in. Erase, add back in. Feeling pretty good. I like how that looks. My gut is telling me to come over here and just top off this foliage here. I love how this tree looks so much that I want to duplicate that effect with these trees too. Even though this is off campus, off the canvas that I expect to have as the actual viewable area, I'm feeling compelled just to fill these things in because they want to be filled in. And now we'll kick on over to this side here. Did you see that? We had this drag that ended up happening here. Look, that's just the consequence of me dragging the brush. So that doesn't look good. That was lazy of me. I just didn't pick up my pen. I have to make sure I keep stippling and picking up the pen, because I get drag effects like that and it looks unnatural. Break that up like that a little bit, drop into here. Keep it. We're going to drop the size of the brush here when we move towards the further as we move towards the edge of the board. We're going to reduce the size of the brush to imply a little bit of pulling away from the camera, a little distance. Subtle, because it's only one. It's like a 5 pixel difference, so it's subtle. But again, the eye is really good at picking up on subtleties, and when you can convince them that they're there, the eye just hand waves everything. It's like, yeah, you're good. Not going to worry about you. You look good. If something doesn't look right, your eye is going to scrutinize it and try to make sense of what it is that you're looking at. And if the art is, if the form is bad, if the anatomy is bad of the trees or the people or whatever, if it doesn't look right, the eye won't let it go, and it's going to flag it as bad. Like, this is unnatural, this doesn't look right, and that in illustrations, that means that's a bad illustration. So again, you want to trick the eye into going along with whatever it is that you're trying to produce here, so that it can turn off its scrutiny and just enjoy the ride. That's all your eye wants to do. Minimize the workload, but when something triggers, like there's something wrong with this, it has to investigate it to try to figure out what's going wrong with it. And the more trained your eye is, the more easy it is for you to pick up, like, that arm is wrong, or that building's at the wrong angle, or those wheels aren't round. Stupid Canada. These will be things that the eye will be forced to scrutinize, so you want to reduce the need for it to be on alert. Relax it, help convince it that everything's fine here and this is an opportunity for it to rest, not stress. And this is where I'm going to reduce the size of the brush just a smidge. Create that inferred distance. The success of a landscape painting is layers. Most Bob Ross paintings have between 17 and 25 layers-ish. Rarely does it push up to 30, like sky, mountain, hills, forest on the hills, knoll, more forest, bushes, and then foreground flowers. Like, that's the cascade that you move from the back of the canvas to the forward of the canvas. Typically around 17, 25 layers that he'll push through. And that amount of depth just makes the eye just quits. It's just like, yeah. This is a landscape. Good job. I know what that is. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Now I can enjoy it. Once your eye stops worrying about something, it starts enjoying whatever it is. Keep that size small. And yeah, this is just running off the page, but again, that's what we want, so that we have the ability to tweak its position a little bit if necessary. And we'll break up these dense blocks of color so that the light can filter through. That's the whole point, is creating an environment the light can filter through to help reinforce all of this distant foliage scrub that we had. push that up. That feels good. Carve that down, shape it around a little bit better. That feels good. There we go. Just stippling the shit out of this environment. That's how you do it. Now I'm going to drop the opacity on the foliage just a little bit. And then we're going to take the whole background here and we're going to fade it out a little bit. Like that. And we're going to take this and fade that out a little bit. There we go. That's starting to look pretty good. Now add in these. See, that becomes receded background. Let's actually recede it a little bit further. Like that. So this tree and this tree are the main pieces. I actually want to drop down here and grab these. Merge that down. There, central trees, mid-ground trees, far back trees, diffused foliage in the background. It's all layering over each other into a forest. See how that's progressing? These are darker than those back there. I think I want to push up. I think I want to push the saturation on these a little bit more. So I'm going to drop that a little bit. Yeah, let's drop that a bit and up the there. Actually, I feel like we can afford to get into actual bark color. Hold on, let's grab our reference here real quick and find a bark color that's going to coincide with where we're at and what we want to do. I feel like we want to be something kind of like this. That's too dark. Let's switch to our round brush while we're here. There we go. That's too dark. There, I bet that's gonna feel good. Let's hit all those. Huh. There we go. That's what I wanted. I think I want to fade it a little bit. Yeah, that feels better. Let's see. That's going to allow us to take this background here and bring it up a little bit. I still want it to fade, but it doesn't have to be as severe. There we go. I'll take this and let's drop that in a little bit more to see where we end up at. Very desaturated. This is better saturation here.
Let's actually up that a smidge. There we go. Okay, so that these lines feel a little dense. I'm going to go ahead and merge this down since I'm happy with that color for these trees, but they feel a little crowded. So I think I'm gonna duplicate the layer just to protect it, to protect the work that we did. And now I'm going to selectively trim down some of these trees and maybe spread them out a little bit. Not too uniformly. What human mind thinks is chaos ends up just being evenly spaced and organized. So you have to be mindful of gaps. Let's take this and push it over a smidge. These look pretty good there. I'm going to push that one over. Let's take this one and push it over a smidge. I don't like these heavy trees here in the middle. I'm actually going to get rid of these. And I'm going to grab these. I'm going to pull these over here. I'm going to extend them a bit. I think I want this middle to remain, again, because this is all about having him added in here into the foreground. I think I'm pretty happy with that backdrop there. I better be, because it's kind of locked in place. But again, we're gonna be adding, you know, foliage here and foliage here to fill in all that, to fill in that mid gap with just like heavy texture. So we aren't there yet. We have to keep filling in the trees. And what time is it? 7:45. Not a lot of time left, so we can start futzing around with. But I'm liking how this is coming along. I'm really, really happy with this. So these trees are going to be the biggest, boldest. So for now, let's take this branch color here and make it make sense. It's more of the same process of adding a new tree, but look, they're darker because they're closer, which means we're going to have to pay a little bit more attention to the detail. We might actually switch up the texture on the foliage. Say foliage again, Kearney, I dare you. Foliage. We can actually extend these out and actually add in split branches with these. That's about where we're at, but we're not quite. So I'm going to just take a couple of them here for now, and then just start. We'll end up doing. We're going to end up layering, like having these. While the branches in like this background here, this is all in the same layer. We didn't care about them necessarily overlapping each other. There, that's the way to balance that. See, just drop the opacity a little bit and they just fade in. Oh, that feels good. That feels really, really good. For now, I want to take these. I want to taper off these branches since they're closer to the foreground and you can see more detail with them. I want to pay more attention to them specifically. Just make them look more. Again, if I do these branches right, the eye is just going to accept that these branches are right. They'll just automatically assume. If the thing that's closest with the most detail looks good, the thing in the background that's obviously the same type of thing with less detail, the eye will just fill in those details for us. We don't have to worry about it. So you only need to really focus a lot on the foreground where the most detail would naturally be at, of course.
and then duplicate that look slightly in the background, and it'll just fill in for you. This is basic. These is basic tenets of illustration and perspective and stuff. But actually calling it out is really useful. Just part of the learning process, right? If I'm educating anybody, if anything. So we can taper these off for now, and then we can come back through and do like little sub branches off of it. That's not the right size, and we're not ready for it yet, but we're getting there. So that's a pair. So I'm working in out from the middle. So I'm gonna add in another layer, and then we're gonna start working on this tree. But I am damn near out of time. So we're going to continue with this illustration tomorrow. And with any luck, I think it's realistic that we could potentially have this done by Friday, if not by Monday. And then we'll be able to focus on the druid in the foreground and the divining pool that he's operating out of. That looks good enough. Let's do that. And this tree, we'll work on this one a little bit. We're just about out of time. All right, Muse says stop. So it's 7:52. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the brakes there. Let's go ahead and add all our components back in. This is where the piece ended today. So far, so good. I'm happy with this. It's coming along very nicely. Once we add the foreground foliage, he won't feel so far like he's really pushed forward in the foreground right now. Obviously, once we block the text back in, a lot of that's just going to disappear. But yeah, this is where we're at for now. I'm going to go ahead and hit save here, and I'll show you guys what I was working on last night. Like I was saying, I was going to be doing the items and oddities off screen. So this is where the bonfire log is at right now. It's got its little fire sigil that you activate, and then it creates a fire for 8 hours. That's almost done. This image crystal, it holds images. Anything you look at, and you take a magic action, it will snap a picture of whatever you can see through the crystal. This is provided with the Ader Academy plot hook, and it has images of all the different intern alchemists and artificers that have gone missing, along with the Eye of Mabar artifact. So here's an image of one of those characters that we mentioned earlier, rather later in the book. We finished our utensils. I'm pretty happy with those. It's pretty mundane. They're magic utensils. They cook for you, so not a lot of complexity there. But we still have the wind vein to finish. If I hide my references, here's the grappling glaive that's already finished. So I'll finish this tonight. Grappling glaive is done. Magical cooking implements are done. The image crystal is done. I'll finish the bonfire log tonight, and then start in on the gate seal runestone and the wind vein of fresh air. I'll have this page done by Friday. So that'll finish off this set of pictures, and then we'll go. I'll start working on the creature menagerie, integrating that stuff, and I'll reassess how many illustrations we actually need, and we'll be building that out. We'll be building illustrations here in the morning, Monday through Friday, and then the evening off camera I do work like this. We'll be doing the Spelljammer Storm King's Thunder campaign, developing all the assets, the maps, the mecha, the tables. We're going to just spend some time building that out as a campaign for us to basically playtest the Kaiju and Construct mechanics that we were looking at on Monday night. So that's it for now, guys. I'm going to kick on out of here. I really appreciate folks hanging out with me and asking questions and stuff. I really appreciate you guys. Really. And I don't need to save this. This should be saved. I'm going to hit save again. This is going to end up being a great piece. I'm going to love this. And we'll drop that out of the way. And that's it for the day, guys. So I will see all of you tomorrow morning, hopefully. Cheers.